Lisa Novak was supposed to be the embodiment of the perfect astronaut, Navy elite, handpicked for missions beyond Earth. But in 2007, Novak's life crashed back to Earth with a 900-mile drive, a trunk full of weapons, and an arrest that stunned the world. The official narrative points to one breakdown, one outlier. Yet behind the headlines, the pristine image of space heroes began to crack, revealing a hidden epidemic. Secret cover-ups, ruined families, and a documented 60% divorce rate haunting those who return from the stars. If the title, The Astronaut Who Came Back from Space Clinically Insane, sounds unbelievable, consider this. What are space agencies so desperate to hide? The answer begins with the story they tried to bury. February 2007. Lisa Novak sits behind the wheel of her blue Nissan, hands gripping the steering wheel for hour after hour. She's driven nearly 900 miles from Houston to Orlando, barely stopping except to refill her gas tank. In the trunk, a steel mallet, a folding knife, rubber tubing, a BB gun, and a stack of adult diapers. Novak, a mission specialist on NASA's STS-121 flight just 7 months earlier, is not on assignment. She's wearing a dark wig and trench coat, stalking the airport parking lot, waiting for her rival to appear. The arrest comes fast. Police find Novak in a confrontation with Air Force Captain Colleen Shipman, pepper spray in hand. The officers search her car. The inventory reads like a checklist from a true crime novel. Zip ties, garbage bags, maps, a handwritten plan. Court records later reveal Novak had slept little for weeks, her marriage unraveling, her career in limbo. Psychological evaluations point to depression and prolonged mission stress, but the details stay buried behind legal walls. The mugshot splashes across every network. NASA's response is swift and sanitized. Novak is suspended, her name scrubbed from official rosters, her mission patch quietly retired. Inside the astronaut corps, shock mixes with fear. Novak had passed every screening, endured years of training, survived the relentless schedule that defines the astronaut life. Her breakdown wasn't supposed to happen. NASA launches an internal review, tightening psychological monitoring and rewriting the rules for fitness to fly. But the questions don't go away. If the most rigorously selected, meticulously trained astronauts can unravel so suddenly, what does that say about the pressures lurking behind the perfect image? The Lisa Novak case isn't just a tabloid scandal, it's a warning shot. The system built to catch every flaw missed something fundamental. And for the first time, the public sees that the mental cost of reaching for the stars might be far higher than anyone is willing to admit. Inside NASA and the Russian space program, mental health problems have always been handled with quiet caution. Official logs use phrases like adjustment fatigue or performance decrements, carefully avoiding the word breakdown. In the early years, any astronaut or cosmonaut who admitted to psychological distress risked losing their flight status, and sometimes their career. Reports of panic, hallucinations, or depression were kept out of public view, sealed in classified files, or recast as minor medical issues. The right stuff image demanded flawless composure, even when the reality looked very different behind closed doors. Family life often paid the price. During the Apollo and Gemini era, nearly 3/4 of astronaut marriages ended in divorce. The stress of long absences, media scrutiny, and the pressure to maintain a heroic front proved overwhelming. Astronauts returning from missions sometimes found themselves unable to reconnect with spouses or children, drifting into emotional distance or outright estrangement. The numbers are stark. Out of 30 married astronauts from those early programs, only 7 marriages survived. For later generations, the exact divorce rate is harder to pin down. NASA doesn't publish those statistics, but interviews and surveys suggest it remains higher than for other high-stress professions. The cost wasn't just measured in broken families. Charles Brady, a NASA flight surgeon and astronaut, died by suicide in 2006 after years of chronic pain and depression. His death received little attention from the agency. Official statements offered condolences, but made no mention of mental health. There was no investigation, no policy review, no public reckoning. For every story that surfaces, there are others hidden in redacted files or whispered between colleagues. The true scope of psychological fallout remains difficult to measure, shielded by privacy laws and a culture of silence that still lingers, even as agencies promise greater transparency. July 1969. Buzz Aldrin stands on the moon, the second human to leave a footprint in lunar dust. Cameras roll, voices from Houston crackle in his headset, and history records a triumph. But the applause fades fast. Back on Earth, Aldrin faces a silence he can't shake. The parades and interviews blur together. He's expected to smile, to be the perfect astronaut, but inside he's hollowed out. In his autobiography, he writes about waking up each morning with a sense of dread, the question echoing, what do you do after you've walked on the moon? Aldrin turns to alcohol. Friends and family notice the change. His marriage unravels. By 1973, he's checked into a psychiatric hospital, struggling with depression and addiction. Medical records confirm repeated treatment for severe mood disorder. He attempts suicide at least once. NASA, worried about the Apollo program's image, keeps the details quiet. Public statements praise his service, but behind closed doors, there's no formal support system for astronauts lost in the aftermath. Aldrin's story isn't about a single mistake or a hidden flaw. It's about the cost of reaching beyond human limits and the emptiness that sometimes waits on the other side. His collapse is documented in hospital charts, divorce papers, and his own words, evidence that even heroes can break and that the system built to launch legends rarely knows how to catch them when they fall. February 1971. Edgar Mitchell floats in the command module of Apollo 14, gazing down at the blue and white swirl of Earth. He's just completed a lunar landing, but the view out the window triggers something deeper than pride. Mitchell later describes a profound sensation, a sense of unity with the cosmos, a feeling that reality itself is somehow different from what he'd always believed. Back on Earth, he struggles to explain it. He starts conducting secret ESP experiments, then founds the Institute of Noetic Sciences, dedicated to exploring consciousness and psychic phenomena. Colleagues whisper about his transformation. Some call it enlightenment. Others worry he's lost his grip. Mitchell admits to long periods of depression and alienation, haunted by the impossibility of fitting back into ordinary life. Across the Iron Curtain, 1982. Valentin Lebedev is 175 days into his record-setting mission aboard Salyut 7. The days blur together. Endless routines, recycled air, the hum of machinery. In his diary, Lebedev writes of growing irritability, silent feuds with his crewmate, and a gnawing sense of emptiness. He confesses to thinking he might not make it home. Soviet doctors later review his notes and find evidence of clinical depression, but the official reports are redacted and sanitized. Lebedev publishes his diary years later, revealing a reality of spaceflight that official history never acknowledged. The mind can drift far from Earth, sometimes never fully returning. 2 men, 2 missions, one touched by cosmic revelation, the other by a slow descent into despair. Both stories hint at a truth space agencies rarely discuss. The psychological frontier is as vast and unpredictable as the void itself. Mars is no longer a distant dream. Space agencies are already running dress rehearsals for the first human mission. In Russia's Mars 500 experiment, 6 volunteers spent 520 days locked inside a sealed habitat, simulating a round-trip journey to the Red Planet. By the end, mood tracking revealed a sharp drop in morale during the so-called third-quarter slump. Crew journals reported irritability, sleep disruption, and emotional withdrawal. No one suffered a full psychotic break, but the cracks were clear. The lead psychologist called it adaptive distress, not a disorder, but acknowledged that real Mars crews would face even greater isolation. There's a new word for the feeling that sets in: Earth sickness. It's a kind of homesickness that goes beyond nostalgia, an ache for blue skies, real weather, and the comfort of live voices. On Mars, every message from home would arrive with a 20-minute delay. In a crisis, there's no rescue, no real-time help. NASA and ESA are now testing digital mental health tools, AI chat programs, mood trackers, and virtual reality landscapes meant to ease loneliness. But none of these can replace a human psychiatrist, and no algorithm can guarantee a crew's psychological safety. As missions grow longer and farther from Earth, the risk of breakdown rises. Experts warn that unless agencies confront these dangers openly, the first crew to Mars could face hazards no one wants to admit. In 2007, astronaut Lisa Novak's arrest shattered the myth of flawless resilience among those who leave Earth. Official records and mission logs reveal that mental health crises have affected astronauts for decades, with divorce rates reaching as high as 60% in some cohorts and at least one documented suicide. Dr. Charles Brady in 2006. Yet, many psychological incidents remain classified or described only in euphemistic terms within agency reports. As the Mars 500 experiment found, 67% of participants developed mood disorders during simulated long-duration missions. Today, space agencies introduce digital behavioral health tools, but transparency about psychological risks is still limited. The cost of exploring the final frontier is not just physical, it is deeply psychological, and much remains unreported. As agencies prepare for missions farther from Earth than ever before, the real challenge may be facing the truths hidden in their own archives.